Hi friends, strangers, internet. My name is EmilyHanhan. I love colorful makeup and colorful language, and I fucking hate diet culture. Now, last week I did a video about sizing and the lack of standardization and the launch of Yitty. And in that video, I made an offhanded comment about my annoyance at the phrase midsize, and I had at least one person mention, asking about that. So after answering that comment, I was like, I should just make the video. I should make my midsize rant. If you are new here and you like colorful makeup, you like bitches with lots of opinions, or you like cute fat babes in general, I hope you will subscribe. Or if you just like hearing about diet culture and fatphobia and raging and ranting against that, you are also more than welcome here. I have some neighbors enjoying themselves outside. That's happening. I'm mentioning it, but I'm gonna keep filming because I need to keep filming. Let's talk about midsize. Okay, so here's the thing. If you don't know this, midsize is a term that is used, or I feel like it was coined for like that in-between range, that like size 12 to 18 kind of range. So I think of it as you can still probably walk into most clothing stores that carry women's clothing and find clothes in your size, but you might have a little more trouble. You probably have less access than somebody that's a size 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, but in the grand scheme of things, you still have more options. And this conversation is not just about clothes, but that's kind of how I frame it out. I'm just gonna say ahead of time, I'm going to try to link anything that feels appropriate as a resource. One of the reasons why I didn't talk about this for a long time and why I felt a little nervous or a little nervous to talk about things like this is because I'm not an expert. I'm not an activist. I'm not a fat liberation activist, but I do follow a lot of people. I watch a lot on social media, whether it's TikToks, on Instagram, reading articles, although I read less than I listen, and things like that. So I think I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome of does it matter if I talk about it? What do I have to add to the conversation? But like I said, having someone ask in the comments just reminded me that it's my channel and I can do what I want. So all the opinions are mine. And if you want to talk about anything I said, definitely that's what the comments are for. And yeah, so that's like my take on what midsize is. And the thing that I saw, or things that I have noticed, is that it feels like it was a phrase that originated for models and for influencers as a way to differentiate themselves from other straight size, smaller people, but also from other fat people. But the other part of this conversation is that there is a fat spectrum. So I don't actually know who originated the fat spectrum or kind of how it came to be, but I find that is a very good visual and kind of guidance for different fat categories, or fatagories as you might say. So there is the small fat, the mid fat, the super fat, and the infinite fat. And there are a couple of other spectrum labels kind of in between those. I will link anything I can as I'm talking about any of the resources that I use. but these are roughly done by sizes. And so a small fat is like size 14 to 18. The mid fat is 20 to 24. The super fat is 26 to 32. And the infinifat is 34 and up. And as I talked about in my Yitty video, you know, there is not standardized sizing. So even that spectrum is not without its like wiggle room or its faults. So we have the fat spectrum. It's a thing that I feel like a lot of fat people, especially fat people that are active on social media, fat people that kind of, you know, talk about fat liberation and the oppression that fat people face, and just in general, I feel that a lot of people use that kind of spectrum as a good marker in terms of where they might fall, because if they're talking about their experiences with clothes or with whatever, knowing that information can be helpful. So that's the fat spectrum as best as I can describe it. Oh my gosh, party people outside are distracting me. So here's the thing. As soon as I heard about midsize and heard about kind of where or what they were, what range it's describing, I was like, so you mean small fats? And that kind of, to me, that was like, without even hearing a ton of discourse about midsize, instantly I was like, okay, so you came up with a new term without the word fat in it to label yourself. Smells like fatphobia to me. And I don't say that lightly, but I do say that midsize, using that label, is a fatphobic behavior. I am in the camp that everyone has fatphobic behaviors inside of them. I think everyone has some to a lot of fatphobia in them. It doesn't inherently make you a bad person. I personally think that we all have like a lot of the isms and the icks in us, but it's how we react to them and how we work on them that makes a difference. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't inherently make you a bad person, but I think that's the human experience. But by claiming the title midsize, especially if you do fall in that 14 to 18 range, I just want to ask, why wouldn't you call yourself small fat? If you had to have a label for your body, why would you not just call yourself small fat? And if the answer is that the word fat feels uncomfortable, calling yourself fat feels uncomfortable, all of these things, you probably have some work to do. We all, we all have work to do in terms of our fat phobias. So how is it fatphobic? How is it fatphobic to use a phrase like midsize? Even if you have never heard the phrase small fat and you were just always like, I don't know where I am. I'm not quite plus size because I don't always have to buy plus size, but like I am sometimes plus size, but sometimes I'm straight size. Like I get it. I get that there is that feeling of like, who am I? Where do I fall? Because we as humans, and I think especially with all of the clothing industries, and I think a lot of like the way marketing is, the way we are marketed to, having labels and categories for yourself is helpful, and it like makes you feel like you're a part of something. And so to not have that, and then to find a label like midsize can probably does feel very like welcoming and like, oh, finally there's something for me. But let me just tell you why I perceive it as fatphobic based on a lot of conversations and all of the resources and influences that I already said, like, I come to this with. So I have found that the term midsize is often connected with the term body positive. And for me, I have moved on from body positivity to fat liberation because of the way body positivity has been co-opted. But I'm going to read a quote from Rebecca Murray, who is quoted in this article that I will link. The word midsize often feels like a way for people to deny their thin privilege and or distance themselves from fatness, all while cozying up to body positivity, a movement created by fat women and intended to center fat bodies. That kind of summarizes so much of how I feel in terms of this body positivity, like, relationship with midsize. Like I said, I am fat liberation or death. I think that for some people, body positivity can be a good first step in this road to fat liberation. But for a lot of people, they get to body positive and they stop. And to kind of co-opt that community further and further distance that community from the goal of centering fatness and centering the oppression that fat people face, that is fatphobic. You are turning the attention away from people that actually need the support and the assistance and the defending, and you are centering it on your smaller, thinner bodies. And so that is such a big, like, it's this, I'm losing my, sorry y'all, I have a lot of feelings and I'm trying to deliver my feelings and my opinions and also kind of facts or bits of information. So that separation from fatness, that dropping the word fat, because body positivity does not have the word fat in it, and midsize does not have the word fat in it. So you are dropping that word, you are focusing on your bodies and, you know, your feelings as a person that holds a huge amount of privilege, a small fat person. So this is a part of the fat spectrum that I don't think I touched on. The point, one of the reasons why the fat spectrum is important is that as you go up in that spectrum, wherever you fall in that, you face more oppression from outside sources. This is not any kind of internalized thing. I mean, there are internalized feelings, but you face oppression from the universe, from the systems that we're living in. And the bigger your body is, the fatter you are, the more that you face. So for somebody who is a size 26, there is a lot that you face. There's a lot with clothing access and with discrimination in the workplace and hiring and all of this and dating and all of these things. But when you're a size 34 or 36 or 50, the amount of oppression that is being put on you is completely, hugely different. The way people perceive and judge somebody who is a size 18 versus somebody who's a size 28 versus somebody who's a size 38, it changes. Not only is there just access in terms of if you have disabilities or just physical limitations as a, infinifat, or I think there's even a term death fat, which is named by a person who is I think it's Ash, a Fat Lip podcast, named kind of in humor, in case you were taken aback by that. Please do not. Again, I will link. There's a couple of articles that I'm specifically speaking from. I will link them in the description box. But so as you move, wherever you fall in this spectrum, it is related to kind of the day-to-day and bigger picture factors in your life that limit you. And this is, again, these aren't things that you're doing to yourself. It's discrimination in, like I said, hiring practices in the workplace, in relationships, in ability to access clothing. Like I'm just barely scratching the surface. So you are, as a mid-sized person, you cozied up to body positivity, you pushed away that fat spectrum labeling, I generally don't see a lot of people that claim the mid-size term on social media also doing the work of fat liberation. So that says a lot to me. And it also draws so much attention to you as a smaller person. So, you know, that quote from Becca Murray is a good, like, there was a part about the thin privilege. When you're a size 12, you have a fuck ton of thin privilege compared to even a size 22 or up. You have a ton of it. And by taking this moment to be like, no, I'm not straight size, I'm mid-size, you're really saying the spotlight deserves to be on me. It doesn't deserve to be on bigger fat people. And I feel that way about both, like in day-to-day life and in modeling spaces. It's hard enough to actually find a plus size model out there. And so now this mid-size, you know, label is even more of a push to use these smaller bodies, these bodies that hold so much more thin privilege, to advertise and market clothing for fat people. Oftentimes by brands that aren't even going up to sizes like that scratch the surface of what fat people need, as I ranted about in my previous clothing video. So it's very much like, yeah, I know you fat people are working towards liberation. You're working to not be discriminated against and to just have basic access to clothes. But I mean, I'm a little chubby. I deserve attention. Like, it truly is. And another part of mid-size that I find is that it feeds into this narrative that people that have fat on their body are fat. And that is not the case. Just because you have fat on your body does not mean that you are fat, and it does not mean that you face oppression as a fat person, because you are not a fat person. And if you are a fat person, then fucking call yourself that. Or plus size. But not mid-size. For the love, not mid-size. Like, does that make sense? So there's a thing that I've realized. When you see, like, you will see Hollywood do this with people like Amy Schumer. I feel like Jennifer Lawrence had a moment like this. Basically, if a woman in particular has just even the essence of a chubbiness to them, Jessica Simpson, perfect example. Tiny person got talked about being fat. So I find that this ties in with mid-size, because we get pushed this narrative that these people are fat. So guess what? People that are also a size 8, a size 10, a size 12 are living their life being like, I'm fat. I deal with fat oppression. I deal with discrimination. Like, they may not be saying those things out loud, but a lot of them are thinking it. But you're not fat. You just have fat on you. But the way the celebrity space talks about and portrays these people, it really pushes the narrative that that is what fat is. And I think it continues this body dysmorphia issue that some smaller people have. Controversial opinion, don't think that everyone that says they have it has it, but that's another like I should keep it mouth shut moment. But I think it continues this issue of people thinking that they are fat because they see somebody that's like them that has a chubby body get called fat or get called chubby or get called ugly or go through this like ugly duckling to the swan process, which usually involves losing weight and having, upgrades and things like that done. So people get pushed this perception, this narrative that they are also a fat, ugly duckling and like they are so oppressed. But Karen, size 10 Karen, that looks a little chubby, that has a little bit of a gut because you have a uterus, you are not oppressed. You are not oppressed. Like, yeah. So that kind of goes into a lot of the reasons why the term in particular midsize bothers me and how it's tied to these other issues that I feel like it only exacerbates. Because I've seen that like, oh, I'm not like the other girls, I'm not as pretty, I'm so fat, blah, 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 because you're a thin person that has a little fat on you. You're in the straight sizes, but on the higher end of the straight sizes. You think you are fat, so then you think you are deserving of the special attention. But all of this special attention is taking any opportunity for fat people to actually be in the spotlight, actually share their story, express their issues, express what they're fighting for, what they're working for. Midsize takes that away. Because success is not a pie. Somebody else succeeding does not take from your slice in most circumstances, but in a lot of these media, social media spaces, it kind of is. It kind of is. Because it's so much easier to use midsize as this pedestal for like glorious body positivity. Look how brave they are wearing a bikini in a size 12. It's not brave. Good for you. You look hot as fuck. But it's not brave. And just to say it one more time, all of the attention that mid-sized voices are receiving, especially because they are not talking about fat liberation, when they are given the opportunities, when they're given these platforms, these microphones, these spotlights, because they don't give a fuck about fat liberation, they are taking away opportunities for actual fat people to speak on these issues, or even just actual fat people to model and show off their hot bodies wearing cute, fun, sexy clothing, whatever they want to wear. Like, I just wish brands wouldn't. I couldn't even finish that sentence. I'm like, I just wish brands would give fat people a chance to model for them. Like, that's how pessimistic I am about it. But I do, that's what I want. And the longer that this mid-sized revolution is happening and all of these mid-sized people are being given more attention and more power, the longer that no one's gonna be paying any attention to fat people, and the more it's going to impact our day-to-day lives and the struggles that we face and the discrimination and the oppression and all of the words and all of the things that my brain has stopped thinking about. Not thinking about, but words are hard. But if you couldn't tell, I was just like, I really want to film this. I'm just going to push through, even on a hard word day. So that's my mid-size rant. Here's what I have to say. Here's kind of how I have to sum it up. If you fall in that mid-size range and you just feel like that word makes sense for you and it makes you feel good, I don't actively give a fuck if you call yourself mid-size. My problem is using that phrase as a hashtag, as a term on social media, as a way to market yourself. That's really where I get frustrated by. So if you're watching this and you truly feel like, I get it, I understand, but this phrase just works for me, I just implore you that you don't use it in a social media context. Don't push that hashtag. Don't let that algorithm keep thinking that this is a legitimate thing that they need to hype up. Like, does that make sense? Let me know. Let me know, like, if you're somebody that falls into that mid-size range and it works for you and you just feel like you're dead set on using it. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Wherever you fall, however, whatever size your body is, I would love to hear from you. If any of this information is new or things you haven't heard before, or if you find any of the resources, articles I linked helpful, let me know. I would love to hear that because, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm shouting into the void, but y'all always remind me of why I'm here. So thank you for that. I also want to take a moment to thank my patrons and my YouTube members. Y'all are truly the greatest. I really appreciate you. And if you're watching this video and you are not yet one of those things and you feel so inspired, they are linked in the description box and I would love to have you over there as well. Folks get early access, try to do live streams and fun things, usually in collaboration with my dear friend Audra, and I'm trying to cultivate more over there. So I would love to have people and shout out things you'd like, things you want, things you're missing. I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking because, as I've said multiple times in this video, words are real hard today, but thank you so much for being here, and most importantly, take care of yourself better today than you did yesterday, because you are worth it. Bye, friends. Sad clown look, because sad clown.